Welcome to Ladies Group Chat, where the group text is loud, nosy, and occasionally correct. Today has everything: Olympic trauma, album sales anxiety, dating red flags, social media mess, and Hollywood trying to reboot your childhood again. Also, if your man is publicly liking bikini pics while acting confused about why you're annoyed, I actually need him to stop playing dumb. Aly Raisman talking about her body during elite gymnastics is honestly hard to hear. She said her body fat was measured at 12% at 16, then dropped to 5% by 22, and it led to serious health crises, including 2 hospitalizations with stroke-like symptoms and severe nausea. And the part that really sticks is how secretive it became. She described hiding food, eating in airport bathrooms, skipping meals, basically trying to survive inside a system where being tiny was treated like part of the job. That's the piece people miss when they glamorize elite sports. The medals are real, but so is the damage when the culture around the athlete is toxic. She also talks about recovery in a very unflashy, honest way: weekly therapy, low-intensity, daily exposure work for PTSD triggers, and slowly figuring out who she is when competition isn't the whole personality. I also love that she gave credit to her parents for being loving and non-judgmental, because sometimes the softest support system is the only reason somebody doesn't completely crack. Chloe Bailey had a completely different arena, but the same basic demon, tying your worth to performance. She said Have Mercy going platinum actually triggered anxiety, and then when her debut album sold only 10,000 copies, the self-doubt came rushing in. That is such a brutal modern career trap. You're supposed to be grateful, confident, sexy, booked, successful, and somehow immune to numbers that are being thrown in your face every 5 seconds. A manager told her, never let anyone take your joy, and honestly, that sounds simple until you're in an industry that monetizes comparison. She and Aly both land in the same place. Therapy matters, boundaries matter, and saying no is not you being difficult. It's you trying to stay sane. Chloe also called out the obvious hypocrisy around women's sexual expression, and she's right. If a woman does a late-night performance that's sexy, everybody suddenly becomes the morality police. Men do the same thing, and people call it charisma. And while we're here, body-shaming public figures needs to die. The Ariana Grande example came up, and yes, commenting on somebody's body like it's community property is gross. You can care about health without turning another woman's appearance into a public investigation. On relationships, I appreciated the very unromantic but very useful advice: state your deal breakers early. Moodiness that turns into manipulation, disrespect, condescension, secretive behavior, emotional negligence, all of that counts before anybody cheats in 4K. And if you are literally finding hair ties and eyelashes that are not yours, babe, the investigation has concluded. Same with the guy who never introduces you to family, keeps everything vague, and acts like transparency is a human rights violation. That's not mystery, that's a warning label. The main takeaway was stop waiting for your standards to erode in slow motion. If trust is violated, confront it. If your non-negotiables are getting stepped on, leave. Then we get to the extremely 2020s fight. Should people clean up their follows when they're in a serious relationship? A listener survey said 55% think men should prune their follows once committed, which tells me half the internet is tired. The split on bikini model follows was kind of perfect. Some people said never okay, a tiny group said always okay, and most landed on fine, follow if you must, but don't be in the comments performing. That feels realistic. The public follow list can absolutely embarrass a partner, especially when the behavior is loud, repetitive, and somehow always defended as nothing. There was also a good point about double standards. Women can send flirtier reactions and people laugh it off, while men do the equivalent and suddenly it's courtroom drama. And no, hacking your partner's phone is not healthy, even if it confirms your suspicion. Being right doesn't magically turn distrust into intimacy. Aly Raisman writing about being single at 30 hit a nerve for a lot of people, because women are still fed this expiration date nonsense. Marriage by this age, kids by that age, freeze your eggs if you're worried, as if that is some casual little errand and not wildly expensive for most people. What she points out, and what Chloe echoed in her own way, is that age panic is often just comparison with better lighting. Your friends get married, then have babies, then buy houses, and if you chase every benchmark, you'll stay anxious forever because the comparison never ends. It just changes outfits. Chloe saying that turning 28 didn't make her less creative was refreshing too. Sometimes confidence actually shows up later, once you stop auditioning for everyone's approval. That comparison spiral also shows up in travel now, and this was such a funny but real observation. Trips used to be more scrappy. You were cross-referencing websites, dealing with terrible international data, and just trying to not get lost. Now every vacation has to look like a campaign. TikTok and AI have made travel more photocentric, more templated, and way more influenced by whatever hotspot is going viral that week. Italy is gorgeous, obviously, but the larger point is that people aren't just going places anymore, they're staging evidence that they went. The celebrity stuff was delightfully absurd. People were speculating about giant private events tied to Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce, with social clues pointing to logistics that sounded closer to Madison Square Garden than an intimate gathering. Which is hilarious because modern celebrity privacy now requires event planning on an infrastructure level. There was also talk about seeing celebrities in very normal LA places, which honestly feels right. Stars are still getting coffee and buying things like the rest of us, just with better sunglasses. And the Ariana Grande ticket resale pain, very relatable. Missing pre-sales and getting shoved into the resale market is its own emotional support group. That whole system still feels deeply broken for actual fans. Reality TV did not escape criticism either. Love Island got dragged for overproduced twists, heavy editing, and background issues with contestants that raise real questions about vetting and safety. If you're manufacturing drama and also not doing the serious homework on who you're casting, that is a bad combo. Summer House got tagged as stale, which, fair. Some of these shows keep recycling the same formula and then act shocked when the energy feels expired. And then Hollywood's reboot addiction keeps rolling. Aquamarine Reboot, a donkey spin-off from Shrek World, and all of it raises the same question. Do you have a new idea, or do you just have our nostalgia in a chokehold? Mitchell Musso passing on a Hannah Montana reunion because the vision didn't fit him was actually refreshing. Everybody doesn't need to crawl back into a former role just because the internet wants a memory. A few practical things actually sounded useful. Amazon got the classic mixed review, incredibly convenient, especially for new parents, while still being part of what makes life harder for some smaller retailers. Both things can be true. Square got a more straightforward boost, with stats saying users see average revenue growth and faster invoice payments, which is the least sexy topic ever until you're a small business owner trying to get paid. Resort Pass also sounded kind of genius. Day-use pool and spa access at thousands of hotels, starting around $25, is exactly the sort of mini vacation people need when a full trip is not happening. And for the travel points people, there was a wild example about transferring Chase points to Flying Blue for a business class ticket that could otherwise cost around $9,000. Very chic, very strategic, very dependent on timing and transfer risk. My favorite quiet takeaway was the phone-free ritual. One host talked about turning phones off for 25 hours for Shabbat and just describing it as lovely, which sounds almost radical now. That kind of repeatable disconnect can create real presence, real conversation, and a break from the constant pressure to monitor every text, post, metric, and follow. Honestly, in an episode full of chaos, that might be the best flex. That's it for Ladies Group Chat. Protect your peace, trust your gut, and if Hollywood reboots one more childhood favorite, at least give us better casting. This episode was generated by Podkey. Create your own at podkey.fm.